good or what? Come on, give God praise for his presence. Give God praise that you got sense enough to give him praise. Give God praise for your neighbor. Give God praise for Brother Kwame Rowe. Hallelujah. Give God praise for Jesus because he's in this place. Y'all up there singing. Oh, we. Come on, let's go to the word. Isaiah 6. And they were calling to one another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the sound of their voices, the doorpost and the threshold shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, it's time to take it to the next level. Come on, tell somebody else, to the next level, baby, to the next level. Come on, tell somebody else, I'm going to the next level. You better. Come on now, give him some next level praise because he's good. On the way down, tell him next level, next level, next level, next level, next level. It's time to take it to the next level. Take what? It's time to take our worship to the next level. Could it get any gooder than this? Oh, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Tell somebody, take it to the next level. It's time to get it in. It's time to go in behind the veil. It's time to have some radical, life-altering, turn you upside down, shake you upside down. Come on, it's time to have some radical praise and worship up in here. Somebody holler radical, radical. Come on, don't get me wrong now. This choir is singing like I don't know what. Folks are praying, folks are praising, but here's what you need to understand. With the type of stuff that we're going through in this life, we need an encounter with God that will make us all right, that will make everything all right, that will work it out. Oh, somebody ought to give God some radical praise because it's time. Could anybody in here stand a supernatural visitation of God? Could anybody feel the brush of angel wings on your face and sense the presence of God like you've never? Come on, give God some glory. Say, come, Lord Jesus, come. Is there anybody in here really need God to show up and show out? Here's the thing. I have learned from some young folk that thirsty these days ain't good. That's what I've learned. They said thirsty, i.e. desperate, acting like you can't do without somebody. That ain't good. They said even when you text them, you don't gush in your text. You just give them a kind of dry text so they don't know how into them that you are. I said, oh, is that how it rolls? Said, no, you don't want to be thirsty. But here's what I understand. God says if you're going to be in a relationship with me, he said you better get some thirst about you. He got to say my soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where anybody ever been dry before and you need God to show up? I dare you to give God a shout. Where are my thirsty people up in here? Come on, give God a shout. Somebody holler, God, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty for you. Hear me. God said, if you want me, if you want my manifested presence and my power in your life, if you want my power to show up in your family, in your finances, in your relationship, how about in this church where it's so crazy that the biggest sinner come in, fall out because they know that God is in this place? Anybody want God to show up like that? Oh, come on. I need more than a sermon. I need more than a song. I need more than a prayer. I need more than a nice, compact service. I need for God to show up and blow the walls out of this mug and then put it back together with his presence. Somebody give God some radical praise like that if you want him to do it. Here's why I'm talking this way. Because you have more power in your worship than you realize. Somebody holler, I got power. Why is there so much power in your worship? First of all, it's because you were created to worship him. Come on, you might be a teacher, you might be a lawyer, you might be a doctor. That is not what you were created for. That's your occupation. Your vocation in life, you came here. He created you so that you would worship him for real. Do I have any for real folk up in here? Where you get that from? After God created the heavens and the earth, then he said, let us make man in our image, male and female made he them. Adam and Eve were made for relationship with each other and for relationship with God. Hear me. In Genesis 3:8, it says it was customary for God to walk through the garden in the cool of the day, that he might walk in relationship with his creation. That he and Eve would be on one side, Adam would be on the other side, and they would be walking hand in hand through paradise and through perfection. Oh, y'all ain't hear me real good. You hear what I'm saying? Can you imagine? God is so God that he can be the author and finisher of our faith, to sit over the universe, yet know enough about us to know the hairs that are numbered on our head. Can you imagine that God can come in a sanctuary full of people, talk to each and every one of us, hold individual conversations, respond and not miss anything, not get distracted, give you your answer at the same time he giving me my answer. And oh, y'all ain't hear me real good. That he can meet your need, her need, his need, her need, his need, all at the same time. Draw a benediction on your pain and move you to your next level, all before we do the benediction here this morning. Somebody ought to give God praise that he wants to be intimate with you. But how many of y'all that worship was interrupted by sin? Somebody holler interruption. Come on, Cain slew Abel because it had something to do with worship and offering. Worship is such a part of who you are. The urge to worship is so strong and powerful that you're going to worship something or somebody whether you want to worship or not. What are you talking about? You can't help it. You were designed, it's in your DNA to be a worshiper. People are wired to worship. Even them fools on your job who don't believe in God, they gonna worship something because they are not the creator, they were created. And God put DNA, worship DNA, on the inside of them. But the problem is the enemy's job is to divert it and to pervert worship. The enemy don't create nothing. He just corrupts whatever God creates. Hear me. He tried to corrupt Jesus. So what makes you think he ain't gonna try to corrupt your worship? Over in Matthew 4, remember when Jesus was in the wilderness? Satan came and tried to tempt Jesus. He took Jesus on the top of the mountain and showed him all the wonders and the creation that Jesus himself created. And then he says to him, he says, if you would but bow down and worship me, all that you see will be yours. But Jesus said, away from me, Satan. He said, it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. And then what happened? The enemy had to back up off of Jesus. And do you understand that your worship will make the enemy back up off of your situation? That's why the enemy's trying to take your worship and pervert it, because he knows it's a weapon against his craziness. Do I have any worshipers up in here who'll give God a real shout one more time? Enemy tries to pervert your worship. You gonna worship. Either it's gonna be your job, it's gonna be politics, it's gonna be your philosophy, it's gonna be your comfort. It may be hedonism. You wanna do what you wanna do when you wanna do it. That's a form of worship because that drive will kill you. Single folk worship wanting to get married. Married folk worship wanting to be single again. Oh, y'all ain't hearing me up in here. Folks will worship money. The enemy is a counterfeit worshiper. He wants to counterfeit your worship. So if you're jealous and envious of somebody, you are literally worshiping at the altar of somebody else's blessing. Oh, I don't want any haters up in here. Hear me real good. Hear me real good. If you won't forgive somebody, you are by default worshiping at the altar of resentment and unforgiveness. I'm going to preach to this side over here. It must be, come here, come here, come here. Jack Hafer says that people don't recognize the fact that they are engaged in the practice of worship because they don't really understand what worship entails. We think it's just a holler. That's part of it, but that's just church culture. Here, real worship is derived from the Old English word worthscript, which means that you have to ascribe worth to the object of your worship. It says that you have found value in the object of your worship, and the object of your worship is worthy of all that you have to give. If my resources and energy and attention goes towards something, that is the thing that I am worshiping, whether I say I'm worshiping it or not. If all my time and resources goes towards vacation, I am worshiping relax. Oh, y'all need to hear me. People worship their children. Their entire life and their resources goes to their baby. That's why their babies become spoiled, meaning not capable of being ingested or good for the intent that it was created for. Because a child is not supposed to be the object of your worship. They're supposed to be taught how to worship the one who is worthy of worship. Oh, y'all need to hear me. So God says, I'll have no other God before me. So no matter what you pour in that little joker, it ain't enough because they've been spoiled because they become your God. Oh, I'm going to go on from that right there. If you ask people who you worship, oh, I worship the Lord and I worship him only. 1 Chronicles 16:29 says, ascribe to the Lord the glory and the honor due his name. Bring an offering. Come before him. Worship the Lord in the beauty of his holiness. Worship the Lord in the beauty of his holiness. Come before him. Bring an offering. Bring of your substance. Hear me. I have discovered that I'm not truly worshiping unless it entails giving of myself and my seed. What are you saying? Of giving of my soul and giving of my resources. Hear me. Because the Bible says in Romans 12:1, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, let me just check. God been merciful to anybody up in here? Come on, has God said, I ain't going to give you what you deserve, but I'm going to give you what you need? Tap somebody, say, mercy, 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 mercy me. In view of God's mercy, he says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. If I'm going to really worship God, I must worship myself, which is my heart, and my resources. Because Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart is. Am I making any sense up in here? Somebody holler, it's time to worship. I'm going to worship automatically. But if the object of my worship does not lead me to God, I will leave the house of worship and still be empty because I didn't apprehend the God of the house. Hear me, hear me. Hear me, y'all. There's a God-shaped vacuum, J.B. Phillips says, in the heart of every person that only God can fill. That's why you can have money, but if you don't have God, you're empty. You can get a new boo from the old boo, but if God ain't living in you, you still empty. Oh, y'all ain't hearing me real good. You can go from church to church, but if you never apprehend the God of the church, I guarantee you, you'll be on a 6-month clock, and then it's time to move and go somewhere else. Can I help you real good? This boy Isaiah teaches us something about next level worship. Somebody holler real loud, next level. Isaiah can help us because his name means Yahweh is salvation. And the church of the living God needs to be saved again from religion and saved to real worship before God. I like this boy because he was trying to turn Israel back from craziness. But it also says, extra biblical material says, that he lived close to the temple. So in other words, he didn't have to drive or get an Uber. He could walk right down the street, and that means he was at church regularly. Tell somebody just like you, I saw you last week. Glad to have you. How you doing? What up, G? Good to be here. But the Bible seems to suggest that on this particular occasion, Isaiah went to worship service and he encountered God like he had never encountered God before. Something ought happen every time you sit yourself in them purple seats. When you come up in this place, I don't care if Snoopy or Gilligan is up here preaching. You ought to experience God. I don't care who's up here. Oh, hear me, hear me. But wait, daughter, what made this worship service so different from the other worship services? What made this one so different from all the other worship services that had gone on from January till now? Come on, didn't the preacher preach the other time? Didn't the dancers dance the other time? Didn't the choir sing like they always do all the other time? What made it so different that this time it just wasn't temple as usual, but the God of the temple was up in that place? Let me help you. Look at verse 1. It says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on the throne. The greatest worship service that Isaiah had ever experienced occurred in the year that a king died. What are you saying, man? I could see if he was a bad king. But Uzziah was a good king. The nation prospered under his leadership. Uzziah strengthened the walls of Jerusalem to protect the people. The stock market went up when Uzziah showed up. The agriculture was good. Hear me, the military was strong, so they could deal with their enemies. Even the south side prospered. The south side, the southern kingdom, Judah was prosperous like it had never been before because of the leadership of Uzziah. Hear me real good. But the challenge is, the Bible says, in the year that King Uzziah died, he saw the Lord. Hear me. In order to go to the next level, help me, Jesus. In order to go to the next level, understand this. It requires the expiration, the termination, the transition, the crucifixion of a person, place, or thing in your present situation. Oh, God talking to somebody right now. You're like, Lord, what I need to kill. Come on, hear me, hear me. In the year that King Uzziah died, then he saw the Lord. See, God is always there, but it requires the death for them to get out of the way so that you can see God the way he wants you to see him. Let me prove to you what's going on. Our nation has an Uzziah. Our nation had the perception that it was untouchable. Our nation has the false perception of false prosperity and false security. Even when we had a little chocolate president for a few months, people start saying stuff. We're now a post-racial society. All it took was for a simmering to happen for about 8 years for people to understand this country ain't as civil as it's been pretending to be for the last 8 years. Come on. There's still terrorism, and now there's heightened domestic terrorism. You can't even come to church and be safe because it ain't about the church. God is your refuge. God is your strength. Somebody holler, Uzziah got to die. Here, Pastor, come on, go with me. There are things in our lives that we have allowed to mount the throne of our lives. Hear me. For some of us, it's fear and worry. How you as saved as you are and still let stuff make you anxious? How you confessing I'm stressed and you ought be stressing your enemy? Hear me. I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid. I want to be comfortable. So we don't step out because we like security. Security is on your throne. You don't like to upset. I don't like change, but you want to go to another level. Help me, Jesus. Sometimes Uzziah is other people. We care too much about what other people think, like they're really that important. What did you do before they were in your life? How come they got so much power now? The devil is a liar. I've seen single folks worship God like they ain't never worshiped God before until they get them a boo. When they didn't have no boo, God was their boo, they was giving God worship. But as soon as they get them a boo, they start worshiping at the altar of Arnold or Arnita. You all ain't hear me up in here. And then we don't have time for God. Hear me, hear me. Whenever you come into this sanctuary, Uzziah got to die. Every time I come in here, Uzziah has to die. What are you talking about? Otherwise, some distraction will crawl up on the throne if you don't keep your eye on Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith.